Before we begin, take a moment to support the channel. If you enjoy powerful historical storytelling, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to Echoes of History. Your support helps bring forgotten moments of the past back to life, one story at a time. By late 1942, the United States had recovered its footing after the shock of Pearl Harbor and the triumph at Midway. But the war in the Pacific was far from over. Japan still controlled vast swaths of territory, and the Allies knew that the key to turning the tide was to go on the offensive, starting with Guadalcanal. When I read the accounts of Marines landing on that remote island, I am struck by their courage. They came ashore in small boats under cover of darkness, guns ready, nerves taut. The beaches were hostile, the jungles thick and suffocating, and disease lurked in every shadow. Every foot of land gained had to be fought for. Every patrol could end in ambush. Guadalcanal was more than just a battle. It was a test of endurance, strategy, and sheer willpower. The Marines built makeshift fortifications, repaired captured airstrips, and lived off the land while dodging sniper fire. Meanwhile, the Navy protected supply lines across treacherous waters, often clashing with Japanese destroyers and aircraft in ferocious night battles. The significance of Guadalcanal cannot be overstated. It was the first time the United States took the fight to the Japanese homeland's outer defenses. Success here meant momentum, a foothold in the Pacific, a demonstration that the U.S. Navy and Marines could project power far from home. But the price was steep. Soldiers endured sweltering heat, relentless rain, and the constant threat of ambush. Malaria, dysentery, and exhaustion claimed as many lives as bullets. Ships were sunk, air squadrons were decimated, and yet, despite the carnage, morale remained surprisingly strong. Letters home spoke of determination, unity, and hope. From the perspective of history, Guadalcanal was the beginning of a larger transformation. The United States no longer reacted to Japanese moves. It dictated them. Each small victory chipped away at the enemy's control, eroding the illusion of invincibility. By the end of the campaign, Guadalcanal was firmly in Allied hands. It was a symbol, proof that the United States could not only endure the horrors of Pearl Harbor, but also respond with precision, courage, and relentless force. It was the first step in a long journey across the Pacific, one island at a time, toward ultimate victory. After Guadalcanal, the United States had learned a vital lesson. The Pacific War would be won not in a single battle, but island by island. Each tiny atoll, each coral-strewn beach became a stepping stone closer to Japan itself. And with each victory came experience, courage, and sometimes heartbreak. I've read the accounts from soldiers, sailors, and pilots, and what strikes me is how every operation felt like a test of endurance against both enemy and nature. The so-called island hopping campaign wasn't glamorous. Marines trudged through swamps, jungles, and volcanic ash. The sun burned relentlessly. Disease was a constant companion, and the enemy was often hidden, ready to strike at the slightest misstep. Each landing was meticulously planned. Intelligence officers studied maps, aerial photographs, and intercepted messages. Bombers softened the beaches, artillery fired from offshore, and still, the first wave of Marines often faced machine gun fire and entrenched positions as soon as they hit the sand. But the Americans adapted quickly. They learned to coordinate between land, sea, and air. Navy destroyers provided fire support. Air superiority kept supply lines open. soldiers learned to move through the jungle quietly, avoiding booby traps and ambushes. Victory was never guaranteed, but progress was relentless. By the time the U.S. reached islands like Tarawa, Saipan, and Leyte, the Japanese were on the defensive. Yet the cost was staggering. Each island was a miniature battlefield, hundreds of lives lost, buildings destroyed, and entire landscapes turned into smoke and ash. And yet, despite the casualties, the sense of purpose never wavered. Every inch of reclaimed land brought the Allies closer to Japan's doorstep. Island by island, battle by battle, the Pacific was being transformed. What began as a reaction to Pearl Harbor had become a carefully orchestrated campaign of momentum and strategy. The United States was no longer merely surviving, it was shaping the war's outcome. And the lessons learned here would prove critical when the time came to strike the Japanese homeland itself. Every island held a story of courage, survival, and sacrifice, echoes of history that still resonate today. By 1945, the Pacific War had reached its devastating climax. After years of island hopping, the United States had pushed relentlessly across the ocean, overcoming fortified islands, treacherous terrain, and a determined enemy. But nothing prepared the soldiers, sailors, and pilots for the brutality of Iwo Jima. When I read the accounts of Marines landing on that tiny volcanic island, I am struck by their courage and the chaos they faced. Black sand burned underfoot. Japanese fortifications were carved into the rock. Mortars, machine guns, and hidden bunkers created a living nightmare. Every inch of progress came at an unimaginable cost. The iconic flag raising on Mount Suribachi was more than a photograph. It was a symbol of hope and resilience amidst destruction. Thousands of men fought and died that day, yet their determination became a beacon. It reminded the world that even in the darkest hours, courage can shine. Next came Okinawa, a massive island, a fortress of the Japanese homeland. The fighting was relentless. Kamikaze attacks, artillery barrages, and deadly ambushes. Civilians were caught in the crossfire. The sheer scale of the operation tested every soldier's strength and willpower. Yet through the storm of fire and blood, the Americans pressed forward inch by inch, capturing the island and gaining the staging ground needed for the planned invasion of Japan. And then came the ultimate decision: the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. While controversial, these actions forced Japan's surrender and brought the war in the Pacific to a close. August 15, 1945, Victory over Japan Day, marked the end of a conflict that had begun with the attack on Pearl Harbor almost 4 years earlier. Looking back, the story of the Pacific War is more than strategy and battles. It is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the resilience of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Sailors, pilots, and soldiers, many of them just boys, changed the course of history through sheer determination. From Pearl Harbor to Midway, Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, each battle echoed with the voices of those who endured, survived, and fought for the freedom of millions. And though decades have passed, these stories remain, timeless echoes of history that remind us of both the horrors of war and the courage of humanity. If you were moved by this journey through the Pacific War, don't forget to subscribe to Echoes of History, like the video, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Every subscription helps preserve these stories and brings the past back to life, one chapter at a time. To be continued.